As a prepper, self-preservation and survivability is essentially driven by the rules of three. The rules of three is not an exact science. Instead, it is a general rule of thumb that seeks to clarify the priority order necessary for survival. In understanding these rules, your emergency preparedness tactics become easier to formulate as these rules become the core reference point around which your tactics revolve and evolve. Importantly, it is crucial that you are not the only one who understands and appreciates the rules of three. Your family must adopt the same mindset from the start. The rules have been set out in order of priority. Each successive rule builds on the preceding rule, but at the same time, each rule is just as important as the one before it and the one after it. The rules of three is all about time. Let me say that once again. The rules of three is all about time. 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, and 3 weeks. It is often said that time waits for no one. In the case of prepping, if you ignore one component of time in the rules of three, the chances are that death would be waiting at the next component. As a prepper, the rules of three should be second nature. Other than complementing your primal instinct of self-preservation, the rules of three is in fact a critical and crucial component of self-preservation. Rule number 1, 3 seconds without a safeguard. This rule is as important by itself and applicable to all the other rules as well. Emergency preparedness is a safeguard. A safeguard can be simply defined as the measures that may be taken to protect yourself, someone, or something from undesirable harm or damage. Within the first 3 seconds when faced with a sudden state of danger, your mind should be pre-programmed on an appropriate reaction. If you have no inbuilt and well-rehearsed tactical response to take decisive hazard offsetting action, your mind will probably draw a blank. In such a situation, you could take an impulsive and irrational action which could increase the state of danger, and which could take you and your family on a journey of uncalculated risks from which there could be no return. Depending on the specific threats and risks that you have assessed, it becomes critical that you have appropriate inbuilt and immediate response actions for each should they materialize. Rule number 2, 3 minutes without oxygen. Without breathable air, your survival rate drops to 0 in around 3 minutes. There could be many environments where the availability of breathable air is reduced or even non-existent. Typical environments where this could happen is, if you are trapped inside a building that is on fire, or in a body of water where you are unable to keep your head above the surface. If you are trapped in a confined area during a fire, you are competing with the fire for oxygen. Other environments may include being exposed to airborne chemicals and physiologically inert gases, such as argon, helium, nitrogen, and methane. These chemicals and gases could deprive the surrounding atmosphere of oxygen, resulting in an oxygen-deficient atmosphere. Your planning and tactics must consider your immediate, as well as any subsequent environment that could impose a threat on your ability to access breathable air. Rule number 3, 3 hours without shelter. Continuous unmitigated exposure to extreme heat or cold could result in death within 3 hours, either from hyperthermia or hypothermia. Core body temperature ranges from 35.5 degrees Celsius to 37.5 degrees Celsius. When body temperature rises above 38 degrees Celsius, hyperthermia could set in. Depending on the stage, effects could include muscle cramps, or severe effects like heat exhaustion, disorientation, or even loss of consciousness. Severe heat stroke may lead to seizure, organ failure, coma, and death. Hypothermia is the opposite of hyperthermia. This is where the body temperature drops to an abnormally low level, and the body is unable to counter the heat that it is losing. As the temperature falls, blood is directed to the vital organs. If the body temperature keeps falling, the organs begin to fail, ultimately leading to death. As a prepper, you must consider all potential weather scenarios, and ensure that you have adequate means and mechanisms of mitigating against such scenarios. Rule number 4, 3 days without water. Water is not just for quenching your thirst. Our adult body consists of 60% water and our blood comprises 90% water. Our body uses water in all its cells, organs, and tissues to help regulate its temperature and maintain other bodily functions. We lose water through breathing, sweating, digestion, and urine. It is therefore important to rehydrate and replenish the water in our system regularly so that the body can function normally. Without access to drinkable water, dehydration happens quickly, causing extreme thirst, fatigue, and ultimately organ failure and death. A person may go from feeling thirsty and slightly sluggish on the first day without water to having organ failure by the 3rd day. As a prepper, having drinkable water, or the means of purifying water into a drinkable state is a key aspect of your prepping that must not be taken for granted. Rule number 5, 3 weeks without food. The body needs food to renew cells and fuel vital bodily processes. Notwithstanding a person's age, sex, body size, fitness, and general health, typically we can survive without food for at least 21 days. To compensate for a lack of food, the body breaks down its own tissue to use as fuel. This process may involve muscle tissue, including that of the heart, which will cause a drop in pulse rate and the blood pressure, and which can lead to heart failure. Lack of food will affect the gastrointestinal system and also cause fluctuations in blood sugar levels. The endocrine system needs fat and cholesterol to make hormones. Without them, menstruation can become irregular or stop altogether, bones can weaken, and the metabolic rate as well as the core temperature can drop. A good prepper must ensure that the availability, sourcing, and even growing of own food supply is a key priority in both planning and tactical application. As a good prepper, you must realize that the rules of 3 are dependent on themselves and interdependent on each other. You must realize that having large stockpiles of food and water will mean nothing if you fail to protect yourself against an extreme weather environment, where you could be dead in 3 hours. You must also recognize that you could be surrounded by the best prepper stockpile, but you could be dead within 3 minutes without breathable air. You must appreciate that, regardless of the size of your stockpile, and all the fresh breathable air around you, that you could still be dead in 3 seconds if you have not conditioned your mind to react when faced with a sudden state of danger. These are the rules of 3. This is the rule of the prepping game. If you break the rules, you may end up paying the ultimate price.
Subscribe to the South African Prepper. Like and share our videos to other South Africans since we are all in this together. Here you get real information and fact-based insights. We don't do opinion or BS. Preparedness is not a hobby, it is a way of life that could save your life.